Well, when the names of harness racing legends are discussed, names like Hall, Caffin, Gaff, Shin, Kersley and Rothacker come up time and time again. If you've been wondering what has become in recent years of former Victorian trotting legend Gordon Rothacker, we're about to find out, because Graham McNeice, on a recent visit to Melbourne, called in on Gordon and his wife Jean and stirred a few memories.
When harness racing went to Moonee Valley almost 3 decades ago, the fans were treated to a style of racing they'd never seen before, and not all of them liked it. For years, they'd been accustomed to watching spectacular action on the tiny showgrounds track at Ascot Vale, where the lead was a valuable commodity. From opening night in 1948, huge crowds flocked to the showgrounds to support their favourite horses and drivers. Few reinsmen enjoyed more adulation than Gordon Rothacker, who was in his heyday during the showgrounds era.
It was a bit like a velodrome, and you could nearly sort of shake hands with the people alongside you.
When he packed away his famous red silks for the last time, Gordon was justifiably proud of a career which had brought him 14 drivers' premierships and 10 trainers' titles.
Gordon Rothacker throwing everything at rhetoric on the outside, and the 500 is up right on the line.
He was the first Victorian driver to win more than 500 races on Melbourne tracks. He's a quiet man who prefers not to talk about his achievements. But we tried hard to encourage him to reminisce about the great horses and horsemen he's known.
Gordon, the name Rothacker is so synonymous with harness racing. How far does it go back?
To my father and uncles, both my uncles, Uncle Vic, Uncle Charlie and Dad. And that goes back to about early 30s, and that's when it started then.
And of course followed on with their sons.
Yeah, and then there was Eric, Des, Albert, my brother, and myself, and Stuart. And he's not driving now, but he was heavily involved in square trotters too for a good while.
So when you're on the farm, way back in those days, and probably prior to that too, you'd you'd train the horses up there, and after the harvesting, you'd head down and stayed near the showgrounds? Yes,
Dad and I used to work the horses, and my brother used to work the horses before we went to do the farm work of a morning. We used to start about 4:30, and we'd work the horses and then do the farm of a day.
Where did you meet Jean?
At the trots. No, actually, I met her at the Melbourne show. We showed a horse there that had won grand champion all around the country, and her father owned him, and that was the first time I met Jean.
So Jean, your family had an interest in horses as well?
Yes, they did.
Now I can remember, and many of our viewers will recall, a brilliant mare by the name of Angelique. Can you tell us the story about Angelique, how you came to get it?
Well, I got it through my cousin, Ray Kenley, in New Zealand. I wrote telling him I'd like a brood mare, the best blood I can get for the least money. And he happened to know about this mare, and he got it for me.
Such a pretty name. Where did it come from?
It came from a television show that was on at the time. A very vibrant and over-the-top lass was in it, and I thought, now that resembles Angel.
Angelique. And she proved to be something special, didn't she?
She was.
I've never seen a horse before or since that could go as quick as her free-legged in the paddock when she was a yearling. We were trying to head them off to get them in, a bunch of them, when she was a yearling, and I was doing 33 mile an hour in the car and couldn't head them, and she was free-legging in the mob.
Well, she certainly turned out to be something very special too, because she raced in the heats of the Inter-Dominion, of course in the final. In the heat she performed very well.
Yes, she she got better and better as the carnival went on. She won the first heat very good, and then she ran third in the next heat and got blocked for a bit of a run for a while, but she was getting home very quick at the finish. And the third heat she led all the way and beat Fosmar and Cardigan Bay. And she actually won with a fair bit in hand that night. And then she ran second in the final.
And she came up against a pretty smart one in the final too.
Oh, he was a great horse, Minuteman. He did a great job because he won against all adversity. He was sort of carrying a crook leg and that, and he still won. So he was a better horse on the night.
The furlong, Minuteman's doing it stylishly. Angelique second from Track Trial. Smoke Cloud is next, and then Pippa Ricky. Minuteman headed to home nicely clear. Angelique under the whip, the only danger. It's Minuteman in front from Angelique, and the South Australians too good. Minuteman wins the Inter Dominion from Angelique. Third racing to Track Trial.
What was the crowd like that night?
Well, our next door neighbour had never been to the trots, and him and his wife went, and they took an afternoon lunch with them, and they went at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they got in the back straight and right up against the fence, and they closed the gates before the first race, and there was a lot of people never even got in. They said there was a plane load came from Western Australia, never even got into the track.
Angelique also contested the very first running of the Miracle Mile.
She had every chance. Robin Dundee that night was just invincible. She just went past us the last furlong and a half like we were all tied to the ground.
Other good horses, very good horses you had in the 60s, one comes to mind is Ray Armour Pool. How good was Ray Armour Pool?
He was the best horse I ever drove. He was incredible. I think his last 5 runs, he won the Summer Cup in Sydney, a Cup in Melbourne, the Shepparton Gold Cup and the Bendigo Cup, and some other cup somewhere. But he just got to a pinnacle that you couldn't believe, really. And he was, you know, when he hurt himself, it was just a tragedy.
Just on going back to Angelique, can you just tell us a little bit about her progeny?
Well, Gallagher, her first foal, he raced as a 2-year-old, and he raced till he was 9, and he won in every year of that racing, and he won 24 races at the showgrounds, and I think Dusty Miller was the only horse that won more, and he won one more than him. I think that's how the statistics go. But he was a great racehorse. Teddy Demler won on him.
Moonee Valley won too, didn't he?
Yeah, and what's her name? Brian Gath drove him and won on him. He didn't, and the World Driving Championships were on, and Mr. Waite rang up and asked me would I put him in because he was such a good horse to drive, and he drew the second row in a fairly moderate field, and they bet 20 to 1 him. And I think he won by about 25 yards.
At 20 to 1?
Yeah. And the world champion driver, Ulf Thorensen, wasn't it? He drove him. And I said to him, just make sure you're clear of trouble with a lap to go, get going and keep going, which he did.
Gordon, in your very early days as a driver, you had a drive at Wedderburn, and things didn't go quite the way you planned.
No, it didn't really. Dad relented and let me drive this horse, Linden Derby, and I couldn't drive him quick enough because I thought I could win. But he was a bit fractious at the barrier, and where they used to start them there on the outside the track, there was a little bunch of saplings there. And anyway, when the barrier went, he went sideways and shot between 2 saplings, and I was stuck there and couldn't get out.
What did the steward say? Were you declared a starter or not?
Yes, I was declared a starter because the barrier had gone. That was nothing to what Dad said.
He really has put a lot into the harness world, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
Yeah, I know he's a very humble man. He won't say that, but I think you and I can say that.
Yes, no, I think he's done a lot.
And they've also have the Rothacker medal has been struck too, which is a wonderful thing for the harness industry.
Yeah, I get a bit embarrassed about
I know
that.
you do.
We'll skip that one.
Are you still actively involved in harness racing?
My word. Yeah.
Yeah.
My one ambition is just in the last few years of my racing life is to get a horse good enough like Graham McNeice to be able to follow the Group 1 racing.
Gordon was awarded an MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours of 1972. He was the Caduceus Club's first living legend and a recipient of Harness Racing Victoria's Distinguished Service Medal. He was afforded the unique accolade of being selected to represent his country in the 1971 World Drivers' Championship. Today, his name is honoured by the annual presentation of the Gordon Rothacker Medal, which recognises special achievements by Victorian participants. This award stands for excellence, hard work and integrity. Is it any wonder it carries Gordon Rothacker's name?